So how do we go from Led Zeppelin to India? Steve just felt it was a great song. He said, that's a perfect song to start this talk this week on India. So we got to go through Kashmir. There you go. So this is part 2 of my series on India, on my path to how to reach or how to create an awakened life, how to find enlightenment. And in our last talk, we really explored the idea of the intention that we created. And there was an intention that was created out there about what was this trip about. And I joked about it and said that I went to halfway around the world to do nothing. I literally went halfway around the world to sit in silence and meditate. And then from that, I had an intention, and that intention was I would get a deeper clarity. I would release my attachment to things. I would find a sense of oneness deeper than I've had before. I would be able to experience life in a state of complete release because I was in India. I was away. I left everything behind. And in that, I would free myself of all of the things in the past so that I could be fully present. And I felt that the way that that would happen would be in the 16 days of silent meditation. And as we talked last week, I talked about the journey of getting to the ashram, which was an incredible journey that awakened every sense that I had beyond anything that I knew could be awakened. I saw things, I heard things, I tasted things, I felt things. I'm missing a sense there. I smelled things that I had never, ever imagined what could be. And in like rapid fire succession, it was you were bombarded. Your senses were totally attacked. And so when I ended last week, I talked about that we pulled to the side of the road. It was pitch black. And we pulled to the side of the road and we were given our suitcases down. And we took our suitcases and we walked across the suspension bridge of about 150 yards. And when we got to the other side, and we're all there one by one carrying our stuff, and the bridge is going like this. And we're moving, and we're getting there, and finally you go another 300 yards up, and we're in the ashram. And you lie down, and you closed your eyes, and you said, the journey is now really beginning. And what was fascinating in that moment was the thing that we heard was the Ganga River. It was loud. It was right outside our door. We were right on the banks of the Ganga River. It was loud. It was like whoosh, but much louder. And so it became almost like a meditative sound, a background noise, a white noise. In fact, Kriya talks about, when you practice Kriya Yoga, they talk about listen for the divine sound. Well, what I took in was this was the divine sound. So in the morning, we hadn't seen what the ashram looked like yet because we arrived at 10 o'clock at night. In the morning, we woke up, and the first thing I did when I woke up was I tried to look outside. It was 4:30 in the morning, and you could barely see, but there was a bright moon. And you looked through these wrought iron bars that were covering the windows, but the windows were open because there's no air conditioning, and you saw the Himalayas. And you were just in awe, absolute awe. And so you got dressed, and then you went out, and we started our first day of meditation. And we started off with our meditation, and we did 2 hours in the morning. We followed it with some breakfast. And just so that you're familiar, in breakfast, when you're on this retreat, it was basically lentils and rice. Every meal, lentils and rice, different colors, different seasonings thrown in, but you're going to get used to lentils and rice. Every now and then a little cucumber thrown in, every now and then a half a banana. It was a very simple lifestyle. There was no onions, there was no garlic put in, because what they understand is that garlic and onions cause the mind to be more in a frazzled state, and it's not as easy to go deep into meditation. So we go through the breakfast, and then we have a little contemplative time. My time in contemplation centered around the book, A New Design for Living by Ernest Holmes. I devoured that book on this trip, and it really has caused me such an impact that I'm shifting my life even more. And this is the 5th time I've read it. The book never gets old. It gets deeper. It's like a Kabbalah. You can't peel the onion back deep enough. You keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into the teaching. And the deeper you go, you're able to go even deeper. That's the beauty of it. So as soon as you do your contemplation, you go back into meditation. After you're in meditation, you come out, you have some lunch. Then after lunch, you have some time where you do Shiva, sacred service. You go back into meditation. And then the last meditation of the day is a 3-hour meditation. All the others were 2-hour meditations. Well, I'm sitting in my posture, my pose, and I'm going into it, and my mind is saying, there's no way, Lee, you're going to do this. You've had it. There is no possibility of you doing 3 hours. And so I literally was in this fist-fighting battle with my mind to just be present, to just be seated, to not move, to stay centered in the meditation. And when I got done, I said, I can't do that anymore. That was the worst thing. So I went into prayer that night, and I just kept praying and praying and praying that I got the clarity, that I got the peace, that I was able to release. You see, my ego didn't want me to let go. Are you hearing me? My ego said, no, you are not going to take control of me. And so it was just saying that this is enough. This is rebelling. The next morning, woke up a little earlier, and there was this beautiful woman from Austria. And she agreed to do a yoga at 4:30 in the morning, from 4:30 to 5:30. And in the United States, we have what we think we call yoga. And it's a farce. It's a joke. It's really exercise in a gym. It's really not what yoga is. It is really not almost a total focus on the breath. That's what yoga is. Yoga is a total focus on the breath. When you go to a total focus on the breath, you go into life because breath is life. When you go into life, you lose yourself in the allness of life. In fact, the oldest forms of yoga are simply about breathing, and that's another talk that'll be coming, because I'm studying that even deeper to understand what does it mean to breathe? How can we engage different sides of our mind? And when we engage different sides of our mind through our breath, we actually enhance the ability to create, the ability to think linearly. It's through the breath that life exists. And we choke it off here in the United States. We breathe very shallow. We don't breathe deep. We don't breathe in balance. So the next morning comes along, and it's very similar to the day, except during the morning contemplation time, one of my roommates was this gentleman by the name of Naranjan. We couldn't talk at this time, so I didn't know his name, but we went on a hike. And we started hiking up the mountains to go to a sacred shrine that we had heard before we were in silence that was at the top. And it was an unbelievable climb because up there you got to see the Ganga River. You got to see the villages. And the villages, when you look at the villages, there's 20 homes, 30 homes. It's very small. Kashi, where we were, or Uttar Kashi, meaning North Kashi, was the sacred place. This is where all of the ashrams are. This is where Buddha started out. This is where all the great sages in India came from or went to worship, to study, to go within. And we did that, and we got a whole new perspective. We saw the magnificence of India, unlike what we saw in Delhi. Delhi is a completely different experience. Here, you saw God expressing. In Delhi, you saw God expressing in a different way. So the day unfolds very peacefully, exactly as I intended it. You know, peace and quiet. I'm in Om. It is just beautiful. That night, we go to the 3-hour meditation, and my mind goes the same way the night before. And I said, I can't do this. And for some reason, I had my mala beads. And I pulled out my mala beads, and I said, okay, let's pick an affirmation. And I picked one affirmation, and I don't even remember what it was, and I did it 108 times. There's 108 beads. Then I picked another, and I did that for 3 hours. And in the process of doing that, I calmed my mind. But the beauty of it was that I was in such a euphoric state of bliss because I had literally taken all of the thoughts for 3 hours and I controlled them. I was implanting into the subconscious mind only that which I desired to experience. Well, we know that our subconscious mind is the main part of our being that creates our lives. Our thoughts create, but most of it is our subconscious mind. We just don't take time to program that subconscious mind. So all of a sudden, my mala beads became my new best friend. And so I would do my 2-hour meditations, but during the day, when I was walking, and I would take walks, my mala beads were out and I was doing my affirmations. During my 3-hour evening meditations, I was doing my mala beads. So I found something that I never intended to find. And so The next day starts just like the others, except this day there's rain, a lot more rain. And then the rain really starts coming down. We're Monday now. We arrived Friday night, it's now Monday, and the rain is coming down like gangbusters. And we are in our meditation, we're eating, we've got our umbrellas, our hoods, whatever, and everything's fine. We finish our meditation right before dinner, and we're told that we're going to have a meeting. And the woman in charge gets up in front of everyone and says, "You may not know this, but we are in the midst of the worst disaster in India in this part of the country ever." And you see the Ganga River. When we got there, the Ganga River was maybe 30 yards wide. It now was about 150 yards wide. And it's now coming closer to the ashram. And we were told that there are villages that have been washed out, that there are people that are destitute, that people have died and been washed away in the river already. And we're told at this point that we must get ready to evacuate to higher ground, that we're in danger. So immediately, the place goes from silent meditation into complete chaos. And everyone is getting their backpack, and what we're doing is we had mattresses that were put on the ground, and we were ripping the plastic off carefully, putting the plastic in our backpacks and stuff, putting food in our backpacks, because if we have to go, all we can do is go up the mountain where there's no shelter. So we're taking the plastic so that we can form shelter for ourselves, because we don't know how long we're going to be there. This is a disaster that we could be here for weeks or whatever. And so we practice all of this and we get going, so we're all settled, and we decide that before we go up, what we'll do is we'll wait. And we'll take shifts. And 2 people will take a shift and be on the 3rd floor outside on the ashram balcony, which has a covering over it, and we'll watch the river. If the river comes up, we'll wake everyone and we'll move up. So the first 2 people to have the shift were Niranjan and I. This is the gentleman who was my roommate. And we took a mattress outside, put it there. We put a mattress in back. We made a couch. And we watched and we listened to the Ganga River. We listened to the rain. We watched and we talked spirituality for the next 2 hours. We prayed. We recreated what we wanted our lives to be like, and we prayed about it. We took every moment of this and realized this was sacred. This was not a time for fear. This was a sacred time to connect. Without that flood, I would never have been in that position with that beautiful man to uncover the spiritual depths of our being and to take it forward. So I'll share with you, the journey with Niranjan continues because we're best friends today. We talk every Sunday now. He's in Sarasota, Florida. He's a heart surgeon. I'm here and we're exploring things differently. But that opened us up to that. Well, needless to say, we finished our shift. You didn't sleep because your mind is going, what's going to happen? You prayed. You literally prayed all night long. The next morning you woke up, you realized it was right up to our steps. But the worst part was over. We started watching the river on the other side. The next day we're watching the river on the other side eat away at the bank. And we were watching houses fall 150 feet right into the river. Because the bank would eat away underneath and the house was built there and there was no support, the houses would go down. To give you the idea, 6,000 people died in this flood. That is twice the number of people that died in Katrina. Over 100,000 people had to be helicoptered out. So as this went on, that day we felt we were safe. We got the authorities called. We had a phone with the woman who was guiding and said, if you have food, you do not have to worry about flooding. So at that point, we realized we weren't going to be gotten to because we were safe. There were people that were stranded on the road with no food, that were locked in and stuff. The helicopters and the army were going to have to go there. So we just settled back in. We proceeded that day. I started. Everyone else just had their backpacks. I just unpacked it. I unpacked everything and got my room back in order because I truly believed we were going to be there for days. And that proved to be true. So now what happened? We went right back into meditation. We went right back into our practice. But there were undercurrents of fear happening with people. How are we going to get out of here? They were thinking ahead. They weren't in the now. And you could see things happening. There were a group of people saying, well, we have a way. We've got enough money that we can hire a private helicopter to come and get us. And so they were off on this journey. The rest of us were I sort of just watched. I didn't get to be a part of it. I watched. And Niranjan wanted to get out. His wife wanted him out of there. He's got 3 little kids, and she let through his mother, got a phone call into our leader and said, I want you out now. So he was pursuing that path. And so we sort of separated a little bit because I just stood in spiritual practice. In the course of this, I got to meet some phenomenal people that I wouldn't have met in silence. I met a gentleman from Australia. He's deaf, couldn't hear, but he could read lips. And we would talk about spirituality. He was going through a divorce, and so we talked about how do you deal with it? How do you come through with that? So we would spend 2 hours doing spiritual counseling and prayer. A woman came up to me and saw me praying, says, what are you doing? And I shared that with her, and she says, I want prayer for this. So all of a sudden, it not only became a silent retreat, it became a retreat of sharing the gift that we have in religious science is our unique form of prayer. So it continued to unfold. And then there was a talk, and the days sort of, you lose track of your days. The days just disappear because all you know is you're meditating, you're eating lentils and rice, you're meditating, you're eating lentils and rice, you're meditating, you're doing your mala beads, you're doing your reading, you're counseling, and so it just loses, you're lost. And it was so beautiful. I will tell you that most of the time I was there after the first day, I was like observing myself. I literally got to watch me be me from outside of me, but yet in me. Does that make any sense? It was the most incredible experience. That wasn't an intention, but that was the oneness. Do you feel how the oneness was? If you can observe yourself from afar in the oneness while you're in the midst of something, you feel calm. There's no fear. Not once did fear enter my mind. That night, Swami did a discourse right before bed. There was a Swami from Kriya Yoga that was there. And in it, he said, the mind always goes down. And I went, whoa. That's really deep. Think about that. The meaning of that is that in a situation, the natural tendency of our mind is to go down into the condition. It's to go down into the separation. It's to go down into the fear. It's to go down into the pain. It always makes a step down. It's not natural for it to go up, meaning go toward the spiritual connection of oneness. And so he was doing that to try to calm the people because there was starting to be a buzz going around. What are we going to do? How are we going to get out of here? And so he says, got to be able to control the mind. That's what meditation is about. The mind is about going down. No, we can't go down. We've got to lift. That to me was one of the deepest insights there, was about this idea of when something starts happening in your mind, happening in your life, are you going down? The tendency is there. That's where we will naturally go. It's the way society is taught. So that's when we know we're going down. Now we've got the opportunity to pause, to breathe, and let's go up. And we do that through meditation. We do that through prayer. We do that through gratitude exercises. A lot of the talk in Kriya Yoga is they're really about the gurus. They put all of their faith in God and gurus, and they have a belief that the gurus are the teachers, and we have to trust the teachers. That's a beautiful belief. I believe in teachers. I am a teacher, but I don't put my faith in teachers. I put my faith in the God that I am, the God that is within me. That's where I put my faith. So I would sit back and I would listen, and I would reflect on that, and I really got to evaluate this idea about the God outside. I was born Catholic, raised Catholic, so God was always outside as I was born. And that never felt right. Even as a 7-year-old child, I can remember this indwelling feeling within me saying, no, that presence is right here. And that presence is right with each of us, with everyone in the world. And so I got to really evaluate and get even a deeper clarity there. And so as I got that clarity, that night you could feel the fear, and I asked Swami, and I said to the Swami, I said, Swami, can I pray? And he said yes, because I know Swami. I've been on several retreats with him. So we got together, and we formed a circle, and we prayed. Ways that most of these people had never heard before. And you could feel the buzz just stop. There was a calming of the people. And so the next day we went back into meditation. We're now, like Friday, I want to say. And you've lost time. And that afternoon, we had a ceremony. We were skipping our afternoon meditation. We were going to do a fire ceremony. It's a ceremony, a ritual within Kriya Yoga, and it lasted 2 hours. And my mind just kept going, what does this mean? What is the purpose of this? You see, I'm not one that's centered in ritual. A lot of people are centered in ritual. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with ritual. Ritual is fine, but for me, I didn't gather the meaning. I didn't understand the symbolism. So as the ritual was going on, I couldn't grasp what it was doing. I didn't understand. And so what I did, I took out my mala beads and I started doing affirmations for the group. I started saying, this group is divinely guided to what to do and when to do it so that everyone leaves here safely. And I did that affirmation for the entire 2 hours, one affirmation, because I was concerned about where the group was going to go. The next morning, and see, the whole time, we have the facilitator who was coordinating this group would keep saying, when the helicopters are coming, I've been told the helicopters are coming, I've been told the helicopters are coming, I've been told the helicopters are coming. And so finally, there's never a helicopter. We can see them 2.5 miles straight as a crow's flies. We can see helicopters over there, and they're coming up and down. They're Army helicopters landing, and they're taking people out of there. This is going on for days. We're watching this, and we're being told the helicopters are coming, and I'm saying, they're not coming because I didn't see a place for them to land. If they landed, it was too soft there. They would sink in. They couldn't lift up. And so there was no way that they were going to come. Why were they all only over there? And so in meditation, it came to me that we have to make a move. We have to do something. And so Niranjan and I came back together, and he had the same thought. And he says, let's get a villager, one of the local villagers here, and let's start hiking and see if we can get there through the Himalayas. And then we'll come back and we'll let the whole group know that we can do that. So we proceeded, and our leader didn't want us to do that. The guru said for us all to just stay together, us all to stay together. And we basically said no. And so we went off. And it was about a 4-mile trek. We started about 3 o'clock, I want to say. It took us 2 hours to get all the way through the trek. The trek was, you started out at the level of the Ganja, you started off gradual, and then you went like this. And you had to go like this because all the paths down here were washed out. Landslides. So you had to get above the landslide. There were parts of the path that were like this wide, and there was a 12-foot section going at an angle like this that they put sticks about this big, branches, and they put sandbags on top. And from there, it was like a straight drop into the Ganga River, 750 to 1,000 feet. And so you're literally going like this. And you're just trusting. And it was fine. And then going down the mountains, when you go way up, you go down, and then you go back up again. And the second time you're going down on all rock. And so the chances that you could break a leg, twist an ankle are extreme, and you just held prayer. This gentleman who was the villager with us, he was maybe 5'5", 120 pounds max. He saved my life twice. Because my foot started to slide and I was losing it, and he just grabbed me with like an iron fist. He did it for Niranjan, and I'm 6'1.5", about 180 pounds. Niranjan is 6'4", 225 pounds. He did the same thing there. He was our angel. And so when we got to the other side of the dam, we got to the heliport, we went up, and Niranjan spoke Hindi, so we were able to talk to the army commander. He guaranteed us that we would get off. So then now we have to hike all the way back, because I looked at Niranjan and says, why don't we just call him? Let's just get a phone, call him, and tell him, we'll see you later. We'll catch one of these helicopters and we'll head out. And we realized, no, that's not what it is. We were there to be a part of this group and to get out together. So we hiked all the way back. And as we hiked back toward the last 15, 20, 30 minutes of it, it was dark. We had our flashlights out doing this going back. And it was just easy and effortless. Remember, we said the prayer. Niranjan and I prayed before we went that this would be an easy and effortless trip and everything would resolve. That prayer was answered. So when we got back, everyone immediately gathered. I was probably if I wasn't the oldest person, I was one of the oldest people, but yet I was one of the youngest because of my physical condition. And so coming back, I want to tell you, I had to stop 5 times. I thought my lungs were going to explode. It was just the altitude and going up and down. It was very taxing. I forgot to share with you that earlier that day, I knew we had to leave, and I was guided to do things. I literally started carrying rocks. There was this rock pile, rocks about this big, and I went into the banks of the river, and I created a huge help sign. And then as I created that help sign for people flying over, a couple other gentlemen joined me, and we created a big SOS as well. And people would come up and say, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because I'm taking an action in the direction of what I intend." And my direction was to get out. Because we were told that in 2 days, the monsoons would start, and if the monsoons started, we'd never get out of there. So when we got back to the ashram, everyone was brought into the big meditation hall, and Niranjan started to tell them about what it was that we had ahead of us. And then I got up and started talking to him and said, basically, we're leaving tomorrow. We've agreed. We're going to leave at 6 a.m. You're going to pack. I literally spoke to him because everyone was attached to their suitcase. We're talking about life and death. So I said, you've got to pack 3 ways. 1, you've got your suitcase. 2, you've got your backpack with essentials that are going to keep you for several days. Toilet paper, some food, a couple changes of clothes, your water bottle, things of that nature. Then I said, you've got to make sure that if you can't have that, you've got your passport, your money, some toilet paper in your pocket, your cell phone, a charger, and a flashlight on you in case you can't take anything. And so everyone was packed and ready, and we were talking and we were dismissed, and I said, no, stop. Let's pray. And so we went into prayer. And we got into a deep, deep prayer, 15, 20 minutes of prayer. And we were dismissed and we went back. And when I went into the ashram area where my room was, I was helping ladies bring down their suitcases. And there's always someone, no matter where you go, that's going to press your button. Do you know that? Doesn't matter where you go. Well, there was a lady there that had done this several times up to this point. And I was helping a lady bring down the suitcase, and she came to me and said, "That was the rudest thing I've ever seen. There was no reason that you should have prayed. That was up to Swami to pray. You took away, this is his retreat." And I had so many things I wanted to say. And I shifted to that person outside of me, and the person outside of me said, "Turn around and just walk away." And I did. I just went back into my room. I didn't say anything because what I realized is it wouldn't have mattered what I said. It couldn't have been heard. See, people say things and they're in a state of consciousness. You're in a different state of consciousness. You're not going to connect with them, so there was no point. There was absolutely point. That's the same reason why there's no point in ever arguing. Because if you argue, the only one you're trying to convince is yourself. So then, we're packed and ready to go. The thing we said is if it rains, it could put a deterrent in all our plans because it wasn't raining. So we went to bed, lying there in bed, praying. And what happens? It starts to rain. And it's raining harder and harder and harder as a torrential downpour. We lied awake all night in our room. I'm sure everyone did, thinking about that. And when the sun came, or when we woke up the next morning, we had a whole new adventure. We'll talk about that next week. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.